One of my past professors was a very superstitious person. He used to wear an amulet around his neck to scare away evil spirits. Okay. Okay, and you have to do is write a paper. So I wrote him a paper on the origin of gods. You're calling me a fool. No, I didn't call you a fool. I said this is the origin of gods. Why are there gods, and why are there, why would people have that? Well, if a person could predict the weather just by looking at the clouds, oh, it's going to rain today, or it's going to rain tomorrow, or look at the crystal ring around the moon at night, that little crystal, showing that there's ice crystals up there, and say, hey, it's going to rain tomorrow. Oh, you're a prophet. Yeah. Which is very, very good, because as a prophet and could predict things, that's, growing seasons, raining, right? You get fed by people. Yes. Why, a god told me this. Ooh, you and a god. The wind god, the rain god, the sun god, the night god, god of the darkness. If you can figure out that the planet is round, if you go up on the top of a mountain, which most times it was forbidden to do, and you got high enough, you saw the curvature of the planet. The only two famous people in history, one, Jesus went to heaven, and when he came down, he didn't say, hey, the planet's round. And when the Prophet Muhammad went to heaven, and he came down in his crib, said, hey, the planet's round? The big curvature of the earth? Why, I could see. But again, heaven was just above the clouds. Yes. You know what destroyed that? You could climb a mountain and look down upon the clouds. Or the first time a person went up in a hot air balloon. Why, he went above the clouds. What's heaven's like? I don't see heaven up there. Oh, it must be higher up. Of course, we have the origin. Now, why am I saying this about the origin of gods? Because, very few people knew what was below 30 feet in the oceans. You can dive down there and look. If you dive down too far, holding your breath, and then you came up too quickly, you very likely got the bends. And because you really couldn't go dive. I mean, divers who dive for pearls or sponges and that could go down deep in that thing and then come back up, but really not too deep. I mean, maybe 60 feet. Usually it's 30 feet. A lot more people would have recovered the gold from, or the ships that sunk. Yeah, that thing. But still, why did that thing? Well, if you saw whales in the Mediterranean, oh my goodness, what's that great big fish there? Dolphins seem to be very friendly toward humans until humans decided to turn them into food. Sharks. You really want to go swimming in the sea or the oceans? Well, actually, the Mediterranean Sea, because sharks, you're food. It's a great big fish with a great big mouth, that bites down and eats things. And while you're not tasty, when I get hungry, hey, you're food. So, and the people considering that the oceans were full of spirits, the gods, Neptune, created by the Greeks or the Romans. And the advantages of having gods or being in the temple of the gods, you didn't have to work. And if you could predict it when it was going to rain or snowstorm, if you lived up north, then you run into a problem living up north. Having rain gods is really not the same thing as having snow gods. And the problem is having gods up there, as my great ancestors would have said, why have gods? We have an entity. Entities, what's the difference between an entity and a god? Entities die. It's like corporations die. Or in many cases, a church dies. What happens? All the members died, so there's no more church. But my instructor did not like me to he said, you made a fool of me. Oh, there has to be gods. No, there doesn't have to be gods. I mean, you would be considered a god with a flashlight. Think about it. Go back 150 years with a flashlight or a little laser in your hand. You would be a god. If you went back to Faraday when he was lecturing in, was it Oxford? You sit there in his room and he's lecturing. He made a lecture on light. But if you had a flashlight in your hand, or LED light in your hand, or a battery operated, or a Coleman lantern that really lit up the place. Yes. Or a little laser, that little itty bitty pin laser that you would have. There's no explanation to them. First of all, they wouldn't know what the battery was. They may understand what the battery is if you put a series of acid batteries together, which they did for electricity, but still, or even the origin of gods. You really couldn't do very much because every time you did your science thing, you could very well make the church mad. Explaining things. Where does lightning come from? Ben Franklin and his lightning rod. Really? Holding a key? Really? Wow. Sure. I would doubt that. I would think he more or less looked at cathedrals in Europe and see them get struck by lightning and realize they had a metal roof, they had metal gutters going down, and he might have been round there when a lightning struck and went down, the lightning bolt went down, But, he had to get a metal rod. Well, he had to get a copper rod. Well, yes. And the wind vane? And he didn't take a patent out of it, and that really made the churches mad. Oh, they're my God, the God of lightning. You got rid of the God of lightning. All churches started having lightning rods on top of their steeples. The same thing, the origin of gods. When you start scientifically, where does the wind come from? Right. When did Neptune become obsolete? you know, I told him, I says, yeah, you believe in things that are not there. You know, it doesn't go bump in the night unless it's an organic and it goes bump in the night. There are no bumps in the night. You know, if you don't bow to Mecca 5 times a day, what happens? Huh? Does Allah come down and hit you? No. If you don't bow to your cross and cross yourself with, sign of a cross, what happens? Nothing. You don't get malaria because the mosquito that carries malaria is a god. Right. So why would you need a god? Hey, Egypt once had 3,000 gods. 1 year. They listed 3,000 gods. And the state would build a temple, or you would build your own temple, and you would have, as someone says, worshiping the sandfly. And if your family is worshiping the sandfly, and say there are 10 people in your family, and now you're the high priest worshiping a sandfly, what happens? Well, the state takes care of you. They feed you. They give you robes. You get to have this and you get to have that. And one of the things about it, you don't have to plant the wheat. You don't have to till the soil. You don't have to water the fields. Right. And you don't have to harvest anything, because you're the priest of a temple. And your whole family can enjoy doing absolutely nothing and being paid by the state, you might say. Well, that lasted one season when you had maybe an extra 40,000 people not planting. And the Pharaoh sits up there and says, no. What do we do next time? Oh, it's very simple. This is the gods of the state, and this is the only gods you can worship. Right. Now, and the Pharaoh was considered to be a god too. But if you lived a long time, and with the average lifespan 30 to 40 years, and you're a subject is an old man and you're still around, 60 years down the line or more, wow, you must be a god. You haven't died. And of course, you go to other countries around the world, they had their gods, a lot of gods. Some were considered to be god. The emperor of Japan was considered to be a god. Even though, considered to be a god. In China, those who live in the Forbidden City, you had the emperor considered to be a god, a living god. Kings were considered to be close to God. Kings of Europe were considered to be close to God until they got killed or overthrown by the people. The old saying, your head can get chopped off, Louis. Napoleon was considered to be a god because he had a great big army. The King of England, before 1775, was considered to be right next to God, and because his religion was the main religion, you believed in his main religion. After 1776, the freedom of religion is also freedom from religion. I don't have to believe in your God. I don't have to believe in your gods. You were from India, you have a bunch of gods. I don't have to believe in them. And, why? The origin of gods. Who cares? Who wants gods? I don't.